What up, homies? How y'all doing?
Good, good.
All right. As y'all know, who I was watching is Richard Graves from Richard Graves Group. We put this one together real quick. Hopefully, a few people check in on us to see what we're talking about. We have Mr. Damian Davis. He is a minister and doctor of ministry from here in the Chicago area. All right. And we have my friend Jonathan. Jonathan's from up in Detroit area. Very bright young man. Uh, as you know me, I'm Richard Graves. So we're going to talk a little bit about this last debate. This is the big one. This is the last one. All right. This is pretty much it, before we get to the big show, you know. Um, we also, all three of us got through watching it, and those of you watching, hopefully you saw it. Quick question, Damien, who won the debate in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think I would still say that probably Biden won the debate. He came out pretty strong with or at least a lot of his plans. Uh, Kind of came out pretty aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he was trying to really touch the issues, really touch on the issues as far as for what was probably mostly concerning Americans, at least in the United States. And so, for me, I kind of felt like he did a did a pretty good job.
All right, Jonathan, in your opinion, who do you think won the debate?
I want to say shout out to the moderator first. I thought the moderator was good, probably the best
Yeah,
so far. That's my
I think her
opinion.
name was
Um,
Kristen Welken or something like that.
yeah.
I know she's a journalist. I have to look her name up. I
As far
apologize
as
for not knowing enough. Yeah, Kristen Welker.
yeah,
Yeah, so she handled herself well, and she handled them both well. But
yes.
in
To
your
to
opinion,
your
who
question,
won the debate? Yeah,
as I said to you before, I sent you a list of the categories. So
right.
I did a Trump Biden, Trump Biden, Trump Biden, Trump Biden,
Mm-hmm.
all the way down. I came up with a tie.
You came
Some
up
of
with
the
a tie.
issues I get they were pushed. Yeah, some of the
Mm-hmm.
issues I came up with a push because number one, I think they both were full of crap on both of some of the issues, and then on
Mm-hmm.
some of the issues, I think that we don't know enough to say whether they're lying on. So some issues I gave a push on. So that's I came up with a tie right in the middle when I did the
Okay.
categories Trump Biden, Trump Biden, Trump Biden. I don't
Okay.
have a stake in the game. I'm not Democrat or
No,
Republican.
no, no, no. We
So
all we're just talking here, man. This is
yeah,
not.
yeah.
I know you both to be straight up guys. Going to tell me what you straight up think. I don't think either one of you are blinded by partisanship or blinded by party affiliation or whatever political side of the American dichotomy you fall closely to, or closest to. So I don't think no, I don't think you guys give me loaded responses. You know, I myself, I look at it two ways. To me, as far as performance wise, as far as who controlled the narrative in a way that caters to lowest common denominator thinkers, all right, people who refuse to have any sophistication in their thought, which is unfortunately a large percentage of our population that chooses not to think, that responds to emotional manipulation. I'm gonna give that to Trump. Okay, and I'm not trying to insult anybody. If you fall in that category of the emotionally manipulated, if you don't like what I'm saying, then start trying to be a little bit more rational. Stop being emotionally manipulated. That being said, without calling out any particular groups or individuals, if you're dealing with lowest common denominator thinkers, people that can be sold a used car that don't work, right? Trump won that. Yeah, I think he was able to manipulate discussion in various areas, most of the areas, except for COVID. He didn't do too well on COVID. But on race, he was able to successfully flip the discussion from being about
Hmm.
our individual experiences in racism to being about crime in major metropolitan cities and what he's doing about it. And he's done supposedly to, with criminal justice reform and prison reform, supposedly. All right. So this is his claim to fame. and he was able to spin a narrative about his historically black colleges and how he helped them out. So he was able to successfully not talk about that. And I think that on a few cases, he was able to manipulate certain groups of people's thinking by simply not answering the questions and kind of going into, well, Joe, you haven't done it in all the time you were in government. You didn't do it when you were with President Obama. Now, and Biden didn't respond quick enough and simply said, we had a Republican Congress who said from the jump that they were going to make sure that this president failed. So,
Good
what do you
point.
think?
Good
That's what
point.
he should have said. He said it, but he said it much too late. Now, as far as on the facts, I'm with you on that. I hate to say it, Jonathan. And the reason why I hate to say it is because I wish Biden would have stuck to presenting a narrative in a way that's consumable and digestible to people who are not following these political things that they were talking about from an academic perspective, or at least following multiple news sources to have an idea of what's really going on. Trump, again, is able to manipulate the lack of not intelligence, because people are intelligent, but the laziness of the American voter, the laziness of American
Good.
citizen to be informed by memes and sound bites and Twitter posts as opposed to actually looking at the Wall Street Journal and looking at the New York Times, and balancing out a conservative source with a liberal source and trying to get a broader look at things. So he was able to play to the fears of people, play to the prejudices regarding, well, you're just a politician. The politician, like, he's not, but he's playing, I'm still the outsider. You're the politician. So he played that very well from my observation.
Yeah, I
Damien,
think
any
so too.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think he definitely deflected quite a few times. I think it probably a little bit more than me. I mean, or at least what I anticipated. But the one thing that I'm still having a hard time, and I'm pretty sure some people probably might have different buttons as far as for what kind of things kind of trigger, at least within their mind, as far as what they're paying attention to, is that I for some reason I just can't seem to process the correlation that he tends to bring up, at least as far as for Trump wise. Why he tends to bring up the correlation to what he's done in the black community and makes the association typically kind of like to prison reform. Like, I've done more as far as for prison reform and things of that nature. For me, I think that's a little bit kind of sketchy, only because I'm wondering if in his mind, and this is part of the reason why I'm kind of like, okay, dude, I don't think you're really touching on this issue as far as for racism. Is that if you're going to make a declaration that you're doing more for black people by doing prison reform or probably going to HBCUs, I think that you're missing the mark, because not for one, although there might be quite a few number of people of color, particularly black people, that might be incarcerated, still at the same time, there are definitely quite a few numbers where people are actually going to college or pursuing different levels of higher education. Um, it's that's the part that kind of ruffles my feathers, where I'm just not quite sure exactly he is understanding the systemic racism as far as for what is kind of being put in place. Like, there are things that the black community is, of course, they're trying to create better wealth for themselves. They're trying to get education. They're trying to get proper housing. But the one thing that I did like as far as what Biden did was being able to address the stories as far as for um, how some white families, they don't have a discussion with their black sons or with their black daughters, that as far as for how you're supposed to respond to police. I mean, I remember actually being roughly about maybe 60 years old, and my father actually had a conversation with me. My son is now 16, so I'm kind of introducing the conversation to him, because I don't want him to be in a compromised situation where he would even remotely appear to be someone that is not going to be compliant with law enforcement. I teach him to be compliant with law enforcement, but should I have to have that discussion? No. And I kind of felt like Biden touched on it pretty comfortably. I mean, I probably would have wanted him to say a few other things, but he didn't give a certain type of narrative to convince me, or at least to persuade me otherwise, why I should even consider that he even understands the plight of what people of color actually go through.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to
Jonathan, you
speak
got
to.
anything to add to that?
Well, and here's where the education comes in about what Trump has done. I think it's a emotionally tough thing to say. He's done more since Abraham Lincoln. That's hard for me to hear. It's just it's just real hard for me to hear. But to break that down, and here's where the education comes. He did long-term fund the HBCUs, but Harvard University gets 40 billion, which is almost 4 times more than all 210 HBCUs gets. One university. So let's put that into perspective. He's giving them a drop in a bucket for 210, and Harvard gets more than the 210, 40 billion. So we got to put that in perspective. That's why you got to educate and understand what that really means. You understand what I'm saying? When it comes to opportunity zones, most of the people who are poised to get the money in the opportunity zones are not the people in those zones. It's not those businesses in those zones. There are those big corporations out here. You got the Illiches, the Gilberts, the Penskes. Those big people, those big players are the people who have the finances and the grant writing people to get in there and get them. The small person, the average person, the minority businesses aren't the ones who are able to take advantage of that. So we got to put that into perspective. I did, as far as Joe hit on it when he talked about, like you said, black parents have different conversations about the police than white parents do. They just do. My mother did. Soon as I got my license, she had the conversation with me about how to deal with the police. And she had sleepless nights when I wasn't home until I come home around curfew. That's a reality for a black mother or a black parent, period. So I think Joe should have hit more on that. When you spoke about Joe saying that, hey, he had a Republican Senate and Congress, he should have killed that, because that's the reason. So the Black Caucus has been had all these things out. They have been presented these things. The National Black Caucus has been had all these things, that some of the things that Trump done, but they couldn't get it done because of the Republicans. So we got to put things in perspective and understand history. Sometimes we forget what happened eight years ago and 6 years ago, who was actually behind all this reform and these things, and they couldn't get it done. But now celebrities come along, and because you want votes, now you're going to let it in. So I mean, that's how I look at all of that.
Okay. Well, and I agree with you. I agree with both of you. Now I'm going to say this whole thing with the prison reform thing being spoken synonymously with black issues. You have the liberals to thank for that. I mean, let's think about what we've actually seen has happened over the last 15 years or so. Michelle Alexander's book come out, The New Jim Crow. You have this push for prison reform, and it's pushed as a black issue. The liberals have made it, and I'm not trying to diss the liberals and progressives. I'm just saying what has factually happened. They have made it a synonymous term to be utilized, a synonymous phrase to be utilized with a black issue. Now, the fact is, disproportionately, there are African Americans in prisons than there are whites. We know that. I think that kind of goes congruent with our disproportionate poverty rate. All right. So that's kind of, we see as a driving factor. Obviously, it's not genetics of black people that end up with more black people in prison. So we know that. We reject that value. But what has happened is that the left has taken this issue and made it a black issue. And we have helped allow that to happen. The reality is most people in our state and federal prisons are African Americans. However, most African Americans are not in prison. So initially, the left ran with the narrative that there are more black people, black men particularly, in prison than in college. But then we found that not to be true, that there are more African American males in college than in prison. So when that statistic didn't work, they shifted the statistic to say there are more black males under supervision by the criminal justice system than in college, which may be true. I haven't checked that number. But then that would include everybody who's on a ticket who has court supervision. That would include every one of those people. It would include people who are on probation for minor crimes. It obviously includes everybody on parole. All right. So they kept trying to make the number fit the narrative they were trying to push. So the net negative of that being something, and then a lot of African Americans got emotionally involved and it attached to it, became celebrities talking about it, and therefore it became the toast of the left, which is why books like The New Jim Crow, that film, The 13th, the 13%, that one show that used to come on, that came on Netflix, the movie, the documentary, talking about the line between slavery, basically, Jim Crow in prison. This has been a big issue. So now when it's spoken about, someone like Trump can take what the left did and say, oh yeah, I've come to save the day. I've come to help black people with your problem. This is a black people problem, not an American problem. So I understand Damien not liking how they made it a black problem, but the fact is the left made it the problem and the right played upon it. Same thing with this whole prison reform, with the ninth crime bill. They want to put that whole crime bill on Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. Okay. The reality is the Black Congressional Caucus pushed the issue for that. And black people pushed the issue for it. If people forget history, 1994, Bloods and Crips was lighting up the streets of LA. Drive-bys was normal. People were getting killed. Chicago BDs and GDs had broken up. There was a lot of conflict in Chicago between BDs and GDs, and also the conflict going on with the various vice lord factions and things of this nature. And the crime was going up. People wanted something done. So we all pushed for that crime bill to pass. Did it have some unintended consequences? Yes. However, at the end of the day, and some people ain't gonna like me saying that, unless Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, or Joe Biden was in the car with you when you did that drive-by, it ain't their fault. If they were in the car with you when you decided to rob a liquor store, it ain't their fault. If they were in the car with you when you was running around talking about that's my enemy over there, homie, not their fault. So we have to take some onus as far as the cultural choices that have led us down this road that have normalized the criminal activity to getting brothers locked up, and stop accepting that as a standard. But now the liberals put Joe Biden, everybody he was running against in the primary, put Joe Biden on the cross for that 1994 crime bill. And I told the Democrats that were Democratic friends of mine, I told them, say, hey, look, all you're doing is giving fuel to the Republicans for whoever wins this nomination. If Joe Biden wins it, guess what? You've given them all the ammunition. The things you're complaining about, Trump is saying nothing different than a Democratic candidate said about Biden about that crime bill.
Yep.
So here we are. So I'm just saying, we got to start playing chess, stop playing checkers, because here we are, with a possible situation. And looking at this debate, it really comes down to this: who's going to come out and vote in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Ohio, in Florida? All right, those swing states, really, who's going to come out and vote? If Trump's base is motivated by what they saw, and enough of us are demotivated by listening to morons like Ice Cube and 50 Cent and whoever the hell else is telling us that we need to vote for Trump.
I knew you was going to put that in there.
Hey, man, it is what it is. I love Cube. Don't get me wrong. I love 50. I'm waiting for the Tommy version of Power to come out. Good with that. But don't get me wrong. We talked about Cube. I talked about Cube on the show. I know what Cube claimed he was trying to do. Real talk, cuz we in the fourth quarter of this game, and now you throwing a monkey wrench in the game. And honestly, if you really were about this contract with America, you should have been talking to Mr. President 4 years ago when he came in office, when y'all was clowning Steve Harvey for talking to him, when you was clowning Chrisette Michelle for singing for him. If you really thought that I'm gonna work with whoever, then you should have worked with him 4 years ago. We'd have that objective. So to me, you're just a spoiler in the game. You throw this out there to get enough uneducated, ignorant Negroes to follow along with this, to say, oh, God, Cube got a point. Yeah, we don't, like, this ain't the time for that. If you believe a man who told you he was going to build a wall he didn't build was going to give $550 billion to black folks, like I said, hey, I got a bridge to sell you too. I need some money. You obviously simple-minded. I got one bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I got one bridge in San Francisco to sell you cheap. All right, if that's what you believe. You believe a man who cannot flat out call white supremacy wrong on a national debate? And I don't care how many times they claim we said it before. The man was asked straight out question, do you denounce white supremacy on a national platform that was internationally broadcast? Any statement, any president would simply say, of course I denounce it. I don't agree with it. He shuffled and ducked and dodged because in that was part of the people that he wants, that he has as his base, which are white supremacists and white nationalists. So he couldn't disavow it. All right. But then he comes back later on some, some talk show or whatever later, some news program. Yeah, I'm actually against it. You missed your moment, Mr. President. If you believe this person is going to be the one to give a contract with Black America, again, you slow is what it is. And I think Cube and 50 are morons. And I don't care. If I get all the emails talking about, well, they make more money than me. Yeah, they do make a lot more money than me. Trump makes a lot more money than me too. A lot of people make a lot more money than me. All right. I'm making money, man. I mean, they're decent rappers. Cube was a good rapper up until about what's that show, that Barbershop movie? No, not Barbershop. When he did the strip club movie. All right, that's when he kind of started falling off as a rapper. But I mean, the man got skill. Don't get me wrong. 50, not the best rapper, but knows how to get down, knows how to make his money. All right, KRS-One is a better rapper than both of them, but they make more
Oh
money than
man,
him.
here
So
you go with
it
that,
don't matter.
bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Here
All
you
right.
go with that.
I'm just saying, Rakim is a better rapper than both of them, and they
Okay,
make more
okay.
money than Rakim. Q-Tip, they make more money than a whole lot of people. I can list a lot of rappers they make more money than that are better than them. So it's not the point. They just, they blew up. They hit the right moment, right timing. And I'm not hating on it. I'm glad that they're making their money. But right now, what y'all doing is y'all possibly gonna cause some blacks not to vote for Biden in these swing states, and that could have a very serious negative consequence for us if Trump wins. Because all the things, let's take all the things he's taking credit for, that he's helped black people so much. All right. Criminal justice reform. Dude, you're the one that made private prison legal again. Obama outlawed it. All right. Obama outlaws the private prisons, and then you go ahead and you flip it, and now the private prisons are open again. So your homies that own stock in these companies are able to make money off of them. So that's the first thing we got going on. So everything that he's done, you can find a net negative to that, what he's done. All right. For example, again, with the whole HBCU thing, I've done so much for HBCUs. Okay. That's 9% of African American students go to HBCUs. 9%. So the other 91% that go to state colleges or who are getting caught up in those scam colleges like Westwood College and all that, now you put a Secretary of Education in that won't no longer forgive their loans so that they don't get dinged for getting this non-accredited degree or when these schools go out of business, where more black kids are going than HBCUs. So again, it's a sleight of hand trick. You do one thing over here, you give them 5 over here. Remember that one? Y'all too young, but there's a Woody Woodpecker cartoon where he was trapped with a wolf or something in a cabin, and they were splitting food, and he would count 1 for you, 1 for me, 2 for you, 1, 2 for me, 3 for you, 1, 2, 3 for me, 4 for you, 1, 2, 3, 4 for me. So who's getting more? So it's a net negative, is what I'm saying. So yeah, okay, you did something for the 9% of black students that go to the HBCUs, but you've done a net negative for the 91% that don't. So again, it's sleight of hand. So I'm not impressed with the president's track record with the African American community. And for those Negroes who believe it, again, like I said, I would strongly suggest you start paying attention, start reading, and start understanding what actually is going on. But, what do y'all think? Because like I said, I could ramble. So what do you think, Pastor?
Yeah, I'm a HBCU graduate,
Hmm.
Wilberforce University, 1856, the first privately and operated owned institution by African Americans. So I'm still trying to find out what he has done for at least for my alma mater. But it was I kind of wanted to back up on something real quick because there's another thing that, and I think me and you we may have talked about it, where we was talking about I want to say is probably the ways in which how they kind of deal with. I want to say it's probably was it dealing with money? It was dealing with something. I just had a just got discombobulated because now I can't remember my train of thought. But um, I'm still searching for some type of clarity, just on quite a few things. But the one thing actually, I kind of got an idea where I might be going, as far as for when it's coming to the taxes and the things of that nature. I have never heard of a 4-year audit. I mean, if when the government is basically kind of looking for their money, let's say that you owe money on your taxes. So I don't know, maybe one of y'all you can probably help me out on that. But I didn't know. I'm not aware of you being able to prepay on your taxes. I'm not aware of. I mean, I'm somewhat aware of some tax laws or things of that nature,
Mhm.
but I'm not quite sure exactly how a person can have a
Well,
4-year audit.
I can speak to that. I used to run the tax service.
Okay, tell us,
So
brother.
what he's really saying, so you can pay your taxes quarterly, you know. I think he's really speaking more towards that. And sometimes if you pay too much at the end of the year when you do your tax return, you'll get money back. I think that is the what I can understand. That's what I understood he was saying. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Forgive
I
this
hear what
word.
you're saying.
That's what I think he was talking about.
But
So
I guess my question is, all this would be cleared up if he just releases tax returns. I mean, nobody would be sitting here. This is another sleight of hand Jedi mind trick thing he's playing. Supposedly, his taxes have been being audited
see,
ever since before 2 years before he ran. When people started asking about this, you actually a year before he actually ran, people were asking these questions during the
so
primaries
here's the
and during
problem.
the election.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
He during the primaries during election he said, "Oh yeah, I'll get them to you." Then he gets to, well, I am being audited right now, so once the audit's complete, I'll release them. That was 4 years ago. So, I mean, you being a tax professional, does it take 4 years for the IRS to actually audit every one of the years we're talking about? Can he give us something, a year or two at least?
So there's two things here. There's okie doke, okay?
Mhm.
You can drag things along when you're dealing with lawyers and the IRS, and you can he's covering up something. Let's be honest. That's what it is. Do I think he only paid $750 in taxes? No, I believe he paid more than that. But however, I think what he's trying to cover up is that he's not as rich as he claims to be. Here's the problem. The problem with that is the system. You have an international businessman who makes international decisions as a president, and you think that he's going to benefit from the decisions he makes in his own business. That's the problem with the system.
Right,
You
right.
got to somehow mitigate that.
Mhm.
Even if he turns it over to his kids, it's still him. He still has a vested interest. So that's the problem. That the first thing when Donald Trump ran, I'm like, how is he going to run for president and he's an international businessman? How do you do that and not have a conflict of interest? So in that part, as far as taxes, I'm not so hard on that because that's a flaw in the system that he's even
Mhm.
able to run. Period.
Mhm.
So I think he's hiding that he's not as rich as he claims to be. I think that's what he's hiding. Not that he didn't pay taxes. I believe he did. I think he's over leveraged. I think he paid taxes, but he's hiding the fact that he's really not as rich as he thinks he is. That's
And
what
I
I think is going on.
and I'd like to see who he owes money to actually too. You know,
There
his
you go.
relationship with the former Soviet Union, I think, does require some looking into. For a few reasons. However, if we start talking about that, the Trump supporters start flipping out. Oh, Russia again, blah blah blah. He played, like I said, he played that well throughout the debate. He threw out all of the red herrings that the Trump supporters love to utilize in order to suspend their understanding of actual facts. Biden came with a lot of facts. At the end of the day, I have to agree with Biden. I think he got him with the COVID thing. To any reasonable person, of course, there's going to be groups of people that still want to blame Obama for COVID, even though he ain't been president for COVID, and they want to blame Hillary, or they want to blame the governor of the state of Illinois, or the governor of Michigan, or the governor of New York. The reality is, and I'm going to put that out there, the president of the United States of America is supposed to have a combined response for all the states, not just the ones that voted for him, not just the red states or the blue states. Our president has unfortunately failed as a leader of our nation. There should have been a combined response, a federal response to this pandemic. The reason why that would have worked, I use the analogy of an apartment. For those of us who are old enough or poor enough to ever have lived in an apartment in the projects, like I did once upon a time, okay, if if there's a roach infestation in that project, I don't care how much boric acid and Raid that your mom uses to try to keep your apartment from being overrun with roaches. You're still going to get some because everybody else who doesn't do that is going to have a lot of them. So same thing with this pandemic. If Illinois is doing one thing, Indiana's doing another, Wisconsin's doing another, Tennessee's doing one thing, Kentucky's doing another, we are not having a combined response. And Biden hit that nail on the head for anybody who's a thinking person. He said the federal government has a mechanism to go into a deficit to be able to help fund the states to get this done right. The Republicans or the radical right wingers, the Trumpsters, try to spin that as, oh, the governor of the state of Illinois, state was bankrupt anyway, or the state was bankrupt in New York anyway, not admitting the fact that most of the federal tax dollars that leave Illinois and New York and California go to those red states that like paying the right to work for less rates, all right, for their welfare and Medicaid benefits disproportionately. So there's a lot of things that are not spoken about. I don't like the fact that the Democratic candidates tend not to speak to people on a level where people can grasp it on the base level. A lot of times they're talking over people's heads, and and people don't like, our country has an anti-intellectualism disease anyway. It's always been there. People have to prove that they're not stupid because they may not have formal education, so they reject experts, and therefore they reject facts. And unfortunately, Biden's come with some facts, and Trump is playing straight to the emotion. I'm not the politician. You're the guy getting money from Wall Street. You, unlike Trump, if I were Biden, I said, but you're one of those guys. I would have busted. You gave money to one of my campaigns. You sure did. That's what he should have flipped it on.
Real.
Trump needs to debate Kamala Harris, somebody with know how to get at somebody, know when to get slick mouth about it, know when to go at him, because he's always catching normal people off guard who are trying to have a real discussion with his infantile antics that play up to his base. They love it. Well, he's real talking right now. Presidents, he's getting it right now. That's how they think. It's really fascinating to look at the pathology. But we got a few more minutes, Damien. Anything you got to add before we get out of here?
The only thing I was going to say was kind of going back to Biden. The one thing I can say that I really appreciated about what he did was that he said that it's not red state, it's not blue state. Now, in theory, we know that that's not necessarily true because some states probably will always be Republican, or they may be a swing state at some point. But what I appreciated was that they're Americans, and kind of jumping back to sort of like the Black Lives Matter piece. It was where you said that they're a terrorist group and they're things of this nature or whatever. Now, I think what he should have done, at least at that particular point, and I think this is a flaw for Trump. It's not being able to take a higher road, not while you're making the case for saying that, well, this particular group is one thing and not making this other group another thing. Then you kind of get into this situation where you are probably subconsciously or maybe consciously doing it, where you're making a divide at this particular point. Even considering in light of COVID, I would have hoped that he would probably had a little bit more reason in terms of how he was able to sort of like address some of these concerns. I would have preferred for him to say, you know what, at first, I thought that this COVID this COVID-19 was a hoax. I didn't believe it. I thought it was false. I've gotten into arguments with the scientists.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten into arguments with the doctors or whatever. I just couldn't believe it. And it wasn't until he was actually humbled himself, where he was pretty much kind of like barely walking up the stairs and he was just totally winded. And so that was I kind of felt like that was his moment where he missed, where he could have perhaps maybe even connected with Americans that, at first I didn't believe it, but these drastic numbers as far as for 99 and 1,000 and 100 or whatever, I don't know, maybe I'm just leery of statistics, but I just don't trust his numbers as far as for when he's just constantly regurgitating them out there. Like the numbers just don't seem to add up. And kind of like what you said, Jonathan, which is actually true. You may not even know. With Trump's numbers.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I actually wound up doing the fact check as far as for the H1N1, the swine flu.
Oh, when he was saying what could have happened. And see, what that should have got shut down was this. I told Trump, okay, I'm not living in a land of make-believe. Let's live in the real world. The land of make-believe, you're projecting something that you think could have happened based on what you think could have happened, meaning you guessing. And let's talk about what has happened. What has happened, your watch. That's how you should have checked them. You should have checked them straight up. This is what has happened under your watch. This is how many people have died. This is how you failed to lead the nation. This is how you failed to be a national leader. And I would have drove home. We're not talking about red states. We're talking about the United States of America, which you're supposed to be president of. Your followers want to say you're everybody's president. You didn't act like it here. This is the one point where you showed you're not everybody's president. You allowed for an invisible enemy to invade the country. It's the equivalent if a foreign army were invading the United States, and instead of having the Marine Corps and the Navy and the Army respond, you just said, just let each state's National Guard handle it. Who does that? You see what I'm saying? So he does that. That's a failure of leadership. Actually, it should be impeachable as far as I'm concerned. But of course, we know that's not going to happen. But as a failure of leadership, as the commander-in-chief, as the leader of the so-called free world, it's a failure of leadership. Biden didn't hit him hard enough on that, in my opinion. And you brought up the Black Lives Matter thing. Again, Trump spun this immediately to, they said pigs in a blanket, and Colin Kaepernick wore the socks that had pigs on them. And honestly, I blame Black Lives Matter for putting themselves in that position. This is a failure of that organization. All right. Because had they listened to the elders instead of saying, people need to shut up, had they listened to the elders who actually marched during the civil rights movement, who was trying to tell them how to market themselves, that you need to actually have a leadership structure with somebody like a Dr. King who can take the hits and say, this is what we believe, this is not what we believe. They didn't do that. So they let their narrative get written for them, and they created chaos from order, basically. They did not operate properly, and therefore that's why the narrative is mixed. That's why you have a good portion of the country that thinks that Black Lives Matter is a racist terrorist organization, even though the only group that seemed to be willing to kidnap a sitting governor, and to all the Blue Lives Matter people out there, they were talking about killing police. Y'all ain't said about that. Y'all want to holler Antifa. Antifa ain't said nothing about killing no police. At least no. These marks made an actual statement they was gonna kill police and kidnap a governor. I ain't seen one Blue Lives Matter post saying we're upset about they were gonna kill actual police. You see what I'm saying? So is it really about Blue Lives Matter, or is it about Blue Lives Matter when you want to have something to say to black people? When we say Black Lives Matter, it is what it is. So again, if I were Biden, when he called them a terrorist group, I would say, well, Mr. President, the white nationalist groups, very similar to your Proud Boys that you supported, one of those groups were going to kidnap an actual elected governor who knows what they were going to do with her. They say they were going to put her on trial. Who knows how that would have ended up for that poor woman. And they were going to kill any police that got in the way. Why Biden didn't blast him on that? I'd have blasted him on it. Because see, Biden's still playing by the old rules, and these fools have not realized you can't play with this dude like this. Biden should have called Dave Chappelle, D.L. Hughley, a few other comedians. Okay, how how do I run it on this fool? And they could have gave him some points of when to go in. All right. There's a time to be presidential, and there's a time to go in now. We are past the point that presidents shouldn't go in no more. This fool don't change the rules. So unfortunately, I don't think Biden understands that. I don't think they believe that. And this is what concerns me, because that emotionally manipulated group of people who support Trump or who claim they're on the fence, I don't know. We don't know what they're going to do, because Trump played that group of people. And again, we got these idiots like Cube and 50 getting through these monkey wrenches in. All right. We got these faux hotep woke Negroes sitting there talking about what they think Cube was on this. You know, these are the same fools sitting there thinking Kanye makes sense. I'm going to tell you straight up, anybody who comes to me and says Kanye makes any sense to them, at that point, I've written you off as a complete idiot. I can't have a conversation with you. When you start going, remember when Kanye said the thing about black people choosing to be slaves? I forgot the exact quote.
Yeah. Right. Oh man. Yeah. That's what he said.
And then,
slavery was a choice.
So it was a choice. And then you had these, what I call in living color Negroes coming like, see, brother, what Kanye was saying is you must excretiate. Oh, you got me. Appreciate the metaphysical. Shut up. They're trying to trying to bring order from that chaos. Look, it's funny. And black people, I'm going to tell y'all this. Just because someone is a genius at one thing doesn't make them a genius at anything else. All right.
Right.
He's a musical genius. If I were a rapper or a singer, I would love Kanye to make me a beat. I'm not going to Kanye for public policy questions. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. And if you feel you going to Kanye for public policy questions, them two bridges still for sale. I need a few bucks, man. PayPal me. All right. It's $500,000. I got that bridge in San Francisco for you. You can have it if you believe that you should get your public policy information or social policy information from Kanye West. What you should get from Kanye West and Ice Cube and 50 is albums and quality entertainment. That's what I would suggest for you. Anyway, let me get off them brothers. Mr. Jonathan.
Hey, but I'll say this. I'm going to say this in response to that. I mean, Ian, I hear what you're saying. I think that Kanye means well. He's not, we shouldn't follow him. I think
you don't.
No,
you don't mean well.
You don't think he means well?
Hell no.
Okay, so do you think Q means well? Do you think he means well?
I'm on the fence with that one. I don't know what his intentions are.
I guess what the point I'm trying to make is, I'm for if you're gonna have a celebrity platform and say and do something, it's better to go along these lines to me than to make somebody risk off some t-shirts and doing some kneeling. That don't do nothing.
Oh, I concur.
Cube's philosophy came from Claude Anderson. I know you know Claude Anderson.
We won't talk about that. You trying to get me banned, because if I get on him, you know how the whole tep's gonna be. We'll talk about Claude Anderson later. All right.
But the whole concept of, okay, yeah, let's do that. That's so his whole concept came from that. You know, what can you do for me? So it seems like they've been doing a little bit of reading. I think that
it's my thing. He didn't write that stuff.
Go ahead.
Well, he didn't write that stuff. There are black academics and scholars who came up with that plan. Cube didn't write any of that. That was Derek Hamilton, Dr. Derek Hamilton, very bright guy.
Yeah.
You know, I disagree with his politics. You know, I think he's a Marxist. I'm not. But Dr. Derek Hamilton is a bright guy, economics PhD qualified. And I'm sure there are a whole bunch of African-American scholars and maybe some white ones even that came up with the plan. My point is not that Cube was unqualified to come up with the plan. He was the face of the plan. My point with Cube is, while you got the economists, you should talk to political scientists too. Do you think fourth quarter, third down, is it time to throw this in the game? No, it ain't. If you were really dead serious, I'm sorry, Pastor, I was about to go there. If you were really dead serious about it, all right, you should have been talking to him 4 years ago. That's my only point. Why wouldn't you talk to the president 4 years ago? All right. Talk to him when it matters, because now I'm going to give it to whoever talked to me. So the white supremacist, white nationalist supporter talks to you. Okay, sir, master, I'm going to come to you with my plan, sir. Come on, Q. Man, come on, dog. I'm gonna see if I can get one of them fellas from out west to come on the show, because I want somebody who know I'm corrupt or tradey or somebody. Tell me what, I'm going to send it. email to Trey D now because I'd like to get Trey D because Trey D, now that's a smart brother. All right, I want to actually hear how he feels about the whole thing. Not about Q personally because Trey D ain't gonna talk on Q personally. I'm gonna say the politics of it because Trey D a pretty deep brother. If I've seen him on Vlad TV on his own platform, man, I'm gonna reach out and see if I can get him on. I'll let y'all know because that'd be great. Anybody know Trey D? Tell Trey D I want to get him on the show because I want to hear about how the brothers out west feel about Ice Cube right now. I want to say maybe I'm wrong. They know the dude. So his intentions might have been benign. It's just that he allowed himself to be utilized as a tool by Donald Trump. Donald Trump played. All right, Q might know game, but Donald Trump know it better than he do. And Trump played him to a bunch of African Americans out there sitting there. I don't know. I'm confused now. Really? You confused? Okay, Tempo. But anyway, I'm be quiet. When they leave, we talking again. All right. So,
All right.
Pastor, real talk though. Predictions for the election. Who you think's gonna win?
Without being biased, my prediction, I think Biden probably will win, but it's not going to be easy. It's definitely not going to be a landslide. He's shaking his he's to make that face like.
Well, we'll see what Brother John has to say.
I think it's more things that have kind of hurt him, hurt Trump pretty bad. I mean, this everything messed everything up. But I think that some reason and some people are kind of emotionally riding with Biden because he is able to at least insert the an American idea that we are all Americans, and some people, and that might even work with the people who perhaps maybe even undecided. I know for myself, I'm independent, so I'm like, if that works, that's fine. If that works, hey, whichever plan works, just as long as I don't get screwed over. But at the same time, I think that he is really trying to grasp the people's attention as far as look, we have been divided. We've been seeing all this chaos. We have a president that doesn't want to denounce or doesn't want to call out certain things that is, kind of disrupting the fabric of where America is intentionally trying to go. So, yeah, I kind of feel like Biden probably might get it, but it's not going to be easy. I'm not even quite sure exactly where the traumatic experience will come. But for one thing, I do know, or at least this is just kind of like what I feel. A lot of the big states or big cities, they ain't riding with him at all. They ain't riding with Trump at all. He's
lost. Yeah, he's not
lost
getting
California.
Illinois. He never had California. He never had.
No, he never had
California.
He's not gonna get California, Illinois, New York. You know how we're gonna go. It is what it is. That's why we concentrate on the swing states, the ones that Hillary lost that Obama had won. Hopefully, hopefully Biden's able to connect with white working class voters in those states. And more importantly, hopefully black people come out and vote in those states. We're talking states that were lost by, in some cases, 900 votes. These are some very close states that were lost. We hope like I said, hope the brothers and sisters get out and vote, and I hope that the young people get out and vote, the people that are supporting Biden. And obviously, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I want Biden to win. I am a Republican. I will predict this much. At the end of this election, whether Biden or Trump wins, whoever wins, it's the end of the Republican Party as we know it. It destroys the whole moderate base of the Republican Party. It's over with. Because think about this, as I said before, this is the first election that I know of where the only other Republican president ever was alive has endorsed a Democratic candidate. That shows you the fissure in the Republican Party right now. It's a wrap. So aside from the way that we have our primary system set up, other than that, I don't know what's going to keep the party together. I do see a shift, and if it's not a physical shift where another party merges, it's going to be a shift of people from one party to being independents or being Democrats. You know, either way it goes,
Well,
no matter who wins.
let,
If Biden
let me tell
loses,
you,
wait, no,
let me,
what is your prediction? Go ahead.
Trump, we already knew Trump was going to win back before the pandemic.
Mhm.
It just wasn't strong enough. Michigan has a big problem with the governor. We're off when we're shut down, but people are waiting 3 months to get unemployment. If
Right.
she doesn't get that together, Michigan is not only going to go for Trump again, but for governorship, it's going to go Republican.
Mhm.
The unemployment situation is unreal out here, Rich. It is unreal. You're talking people got back pay of $10,000, $12,000 because they can't get paid because the system is so sorry. Michigan is going to go red again. You have a lot of people out there when it comes to the polls have their hand closed to who they're going to vote for.
Of
We
course.
don't really know. Remember, Trump was down like this before with Hillary, and he came out victorious. I think it's going to be a
Mhm.
landslide. That's not an indication of who I'm going to vote for. I'm just telling you
Right.
who I think is going to win. Michigan is going to go red again. Michigan barely went red, but I think this time, because the boys up north, I knew wasn't going to go for this lockdown. They're going to come out, and guess what? Black folks don't vote. That's the bottom line. Period. End of story. We don't vote. Period. In the inner city, only I think 30% of the electorate goes out to vote. Period. We don't vote. It's going to go red. Trump's going to win again. Not the saying that I want him to. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just answering the question. He's going to win, and it's going to be big. I think it's going to be huge.
Okay. Well, I believe that's quite the possibility because, as we said, man, you know, it could go either way with that. You know, because there's a lot of people. You ever notice people on Facebook you debate that will support every policy that Trump has, but swear up and down they didn't vote
Mm-hmm.
for Trump. You know, I'm gonna share something
Right,
with
right.
y'all.
That's what I'm saying.
I've shared this before. I'm gonna share it again. I'm gonna play this. I want y'all opinion on what I'm about to play. All right. This time I'm technically proficient now. I know how to do it. So we're gonna run this. Y'all can see that, right?
New election changed everything. Everything. We're not going to talk politics. We're not going to say who voted for who. We're not going to get into that. We learned white people know how to keep a secret. Y'all didn't tell us shit this election, not nothing. We didn't know white people was up to something until they started showing white people in line voting. And all the white people looked like they had a secret to keep and shit. The white people is up to something.
All right. So we know how that's gonna go. There's a lot of people that are telling you, Trump, I just don't understand. That's gonna throw that vote for Trump for various reasons that we've talked about on the show and in private. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. Y'all stayed on much longer than I thought we was gonna do this. We did this for about an hour. I appreciate you, brothers. Thank you for coming on. I'm gonna have you, Chaplain. I'm gonna have you on. We're gonna talk about some theology. Mr. Jonathan, we are going to talk about Dr.
Oh,
Claude Edison.
I'm in
going to put on the
apologetics, baby.
all right. We'll
I'm in
have you on.
apologetics, bro. I just
Okay.
want to be in the room. I ain't gonna say
Okay.
much. I'm just want to be in the room.
And then we're going to talk about Dr. Claude Anderson. You know, one of the elders. Obviously, I respect Dr. Claude Anderson, but we're going to talk about some of his theories and how they work in regard to the modern social, political, socioeconomic landscape. Talk about those things. But I appreciate both of you taking the time to come on. Thank you again. I will have you on again, y'all my dudes. Great talking to you. And whoever know Trey D, I would like to have Trey D on the show. So let him know that I would like to have him on the show. Hopefully I can get Trey D on here and we can talk about some West Coast stuff. And I'll be on my best behavior. All right. So I'll holler at y'all later. All right. Y'all take it light. Y'all have a good night. And again, we will see y'all soon. Peace.